everyone, a very warm welcome. My name is Molly Gambhir and we are coming to you live from the WION headquarters in Noida, India. It's 9 PM IST and this is Gravitas with a new look but the same old spirit. Let's get started. A defiant Benjamin Netanyahu has launched an operation around Rafah, Gaza's final place of refuge for nearly 1.4 million displaced Palestinians. The IDF has begun the aerial and ground offensive in Rafah, although Israel and the US are telling the world it is a limited operation. On Tuesday, Israeli troops paraded through the Rafah crossing in blatant defiance of warnings from world leaders and even from its closest ally, the US. If Netanyahu is trying to make a point, he might be falling short. You see, because Hamas, which earlier in the week had accepted the latest truce offer, has said that Israel's Rafah invasion only disregards the fate of Israeli hostages. As Israel air-raided Rafah, dozens were killed, including babies. In the past 24 hours, the Israeli army has killed 54 people and wounded 96 others, bringing the total death toll in Gaza to over 34,000. This is the terrible cost of political cruelty. Now, on one side, you see the pain of the hostages' families, and on the other, you see the pain of people who are losing their children daily. And tonight, we tell you about the 2 degrees of pain amid the Gaza war. Also on the show for you, British pharma giant Astrazeneca has decided to withdraw its COVID-19 vaccine globally after all these years. Has Big Pharma opened the COVID can of worms? What do investors seek when markets are turbulent? Safe haven assets like gold. And is that why central banks worldwide are on a gold buying spree? Also, how to deal with motor-mouthed politicians. The Indian National Congress Party was left asking itself this question after its leader Sam Pitroda's latest flub comparing South Indians with Africans. We get the details. Since the Gaza war began, Israel said its sole objective was to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth. 7 months on, has Israel shifted its war goal? The hostages are not home yet. The devastation of Gaza continues. The truce talks are on shaky ground. Yet the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is defiant. And in defiance of warning from world leaders, Netanyahu has sent troops to Gaza's southern city, Rafah. After threatening a major assault on Rafah, Israel air-raided the last refuge of Gazans. Now, to be clear, Israel is yet to launch a full-scale attack on the city. Both Israel and the US are claiming it is a limited operation, but the visuals coming out of Rafah tell a different story. Palestinians were seen mourning friends and family members killed in the Israeli airstrike on Rafah. They cried and bid farewell to the dead as body bags filled up hospitals.
The people are all dead. What do they want from us? What do they want from us? God is our suffice and the best disposer of our affairs.
Now, here's what we know so far. On Sunday, Israel ordered the 1 million people living in Rafah to leave the southern Gaza city. On Monday, while ceasefire talks continued in Cairo, Israel's war cabinet voted to push forward with the Rafah operation. And then on Tuesday, Israeli military took control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing. Israel maintains that 4 battalions of Hamas are currently operating from the southern city. Now remember, Rafah is not just the only Gazan city so far untouched by Israeli forces. It is also the site of 2 border crossings, both critical routes for humanitarian aid that Gazans so desperately need. And given the destruction of Gaza and the staggering number of deaths so far, aid groups and international organizations have warned Israel that an invasion could be catastrophic. Rafah is immensely crowded. The obstruction of critical aid routes only worsened the humanitarian crisis. When Israel closed the border crossing, it halted the flow of humanitarian aid, leaving enough fuel to run the relief operation for just 1 more day. Remember, parts of Gaza are facing famine. Everywhere else, there is acute hardship. An estimated 600,000 children are believed to be in Rafah. They are living here in terrible conditions and under the constant threat of Israeli airstrikes. On Tuesday, Israeli ground forces and air force continued to attack eastern Rafah, destroying residential buildings, killing more than 50 people, including babies. This is just from Israel's limited operation. Just imagine the level of devastation an incursion will inflict. It threatens to risk the lives of over 600,000 children. It could also cause the collapse of humanitarian aid response, currently struggling to keep Gaza's population alive, forcibly displacing people from Rafah, while further disrupting the aid response is sure to seal the fate of Gaza's children. Palestinians have nowhere to go. No area is safe. Any invasion will only bring countless more deaths. It will only worsen the risk of famine.
The Israeli occupation told people to go to Rafah and that it is a safe area. Today, they're telling us to get out of Rafah. Where will the people go? Where will all these crowds go? 1.5 million or 2 million civilians. Where will they go? Should they go to the sea?
However, as of Wednesday, Netanyahu's government appears committed to its military objective. On the other side of the border, families of hostages have grown increasingly frustrated following the indications on Monday of the progress in talks towards a truce. The hostages' families appealed to a number of countries to exert their influence on the Israeli government and push for an agreement. In recent times, hostage families have joined the anti-government protesters in Israel. Protesters in Israel see Netanyahu as the problem. They have accused him of sabotaging the truce talks. They see no benefit in a Rafah offensive. They have lost faith in Netanyahu. Some have taken matters in their own hands. The father of an Israeli hostage has asked Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar to call him directly and discuss a deal instead of negotiating with Netanyahu. Eli Shtivi held a sheet of paper with his number written on it during a meeting with the Israeli Congress members. Eli Shtivi's son, Idan Shtivi, was taken hostage by Hamas during the October 7 raid. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, dozens of protesters blocked the road to demonstrate against the army's recent operation in Rafah. They fear it will affect any deals to release the hostages. Just to put it simply, both families of hostages and the Palestinian citizens of Gaza have become victims in this politics of cruelty. The question is, will Netanyahu succeed in wiping Hamas off the face of earth? Only time will tell. Has Big Pharma opened COVID-19 can of worms? I ask that because after all these years, we keep finding new details about the COVID vaccines. In a big move, Astrazeneca has now decided to withdraw its COVID vaccines worldwide. This is according to a Telegraph report. The vaccine can no longer be used in the European Union because the company has voluntarily withdrawn its marketing authorization. The firm submitted the application on the 5th of March. It came into effect on Tuesday. More of these applications will be made in the coming months in the UK as well as other countries that had approved the vaccine, known as Vaxzevria. The decision brings the use of the jab to an end. But why is this happening? According to Astrazeneca, it is purely for commercial reasons. The pharma giant has said the vaccine was no longer being manufactured or supplied because updated vaccines that tackle new variants have taken over. In a statement, the company has said, and I'm quoting, as multiple variant COVID-19 vaccines have since been developed, there is a surplus of available updated vaccines. This has led to a decline in demand for Vaxzevria, which is no longer being manufactured or supplied. AstraZeneca has therefore taken the decision to initiate withdrawal of the marketing authorizations for Vaxzevria within Europe. The government largely stopped using the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine by the autumn of 2021. By that time, it had supplied about 50 million doses in the UK. It was replaced in the UK with Pfizer and Moderna jabs in time for the winter booster campaign. The timing of this withdrawal is interesting. Recently, AstraZeneca had admitted in court documents that its COVID vaccine can lead to some rare side effects. It had said, and I'm quoting, "It is admitted that the AstraZeneca vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. The causal mechanism is not known," quote unquote. Now, for those who do not know, TTS is short for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome. It involves the formation of blood clots and a fall in the platelet count. The blood clots can appear in the brain or abdomen. There are claims that people have been diagnosed with TTS after taking the jabs. One of them was Jamie Scott. He has filed a case against AstraZeneca. Scott was 44 when he received the vaccine shot. 10 days after the jab, he complained of tiredness and started throwing up. And soon his speech was impaired. When he was hauled to the hospital, doctors diagnosed him with a suspected case of TTS. Scott was left with a permanent brain injury. Over 50 such cases have been lodged against AstraZeneca. Earlier, we spoke to Venugopalan Govindan. He lost his 20-year-old daughter, Karunya, in the year 2021. Listen in to what he had to say.
We are in the process of finalizing the details and the team and the whole contours of the process of filing a case against Serum Institute and the government authorities, bodies that did the vaccination for all under 45 plus and then the 18 plus in India. We cannot run the risk of the same things being repeated in this country either in our lifetime or in children's or grandchildren's lifetime ever again. We need systemic safeguards. That is the first reason for which we want to take this to court.
However, AstraZeneca has maintained that the decision to withdraw the vaccine is not linked to these court cases and the timing is purely coincidental. Moving on, let's have a look at what's happening in the economic world. Broadly speaking, the global market is faced with heightened uncertainties. There are trade tensions, financial conflicts among global major powers, record high interest rates in advanced economies, and ongoing wars. In such a turbulent market, what do investors seek? Well, they seek refuge in safe haven assets. And what is a traditional choice? No points for guessing. It is gold. Is that why central banks are hogging this asset? Our next report explains.
A new global trend is emerging. The demand for a precious yellow metal is surging worldwide. I am talking about gold. Its prices have been breaking record highs. Let's look at some numbers. In India, over the last 5 months, gold prices have surged from 60,000 rupees per 10 grams to over 71,000 rupees. On April 12th, they touched a record high of 73,958 rupees. A year ago, the price of spot gold was trading at $2,000 per ounce. Now it is valued at $2,294 per ounce. There has been a rise of 14%. What is the reason behind this unprecedented rise? Experts say it indicates heightened global uncertainty. Because of that, investors are seeking refuge in safe haven assets, and gold is the biggest example of that. Its status is rooted in its history. Even in economic instability, geopolitical crisis, and market downturns, gold has remained resilient as ever. More or less, it stays immune to inflation and government policies. Is that why more and more institutional investors, retailers, and central banks are turning to gold globally? That's part of the reason. There is more to the story. You see, central banks don't want to rely on dollar anymore. They want to diversify their reserve portfolios. Including gold alongside foreign currencies and other assets helps mitigate risks linked to currency devaluation and geopolitical instability. Gold serves as a stable asset for central banks. It offers safety during financial crisis. Its inherent liquidity and value make it a sought-after asset in times of currency volatility or market turbulence. It can be used to cover crucial imports or stabilize a domestic currency. It can also function as collateral for securing loans. Keeping all this in mind, the pace of gold accumulation by central banks has surged dramatically since 2022. This stemmed from the aftermath of America slapping sanctions on Russia. These sanctions included freezing Russian reserve dollars and imposing restrictions on crucial commodity trades such as crude oil. The global repercussions of these measures were profound. They exposed vulnerabilities within Western financial institutions. All of this led to a widespread erosion of confidence in these institutions. And gold emerged as a strategic asset for diversification and risk management. China is on an aggressive gold buying spree. In March, the People's Bank of China continued its streak of gold purchases for the 17th consecutive month. India also saw an uptick in gold purchases. It acquired 19 tons of gold in the first quarter of this financial year. This exceeded its entire calendar year purchase of 16 tons in 2023. Overall, the Reserve Bank of India currently holds 822 tons of gold. This is an all-time high. Meanwhile, other central banks such as Poland, Singapore, Libya and the Czech Republic collectively purchased near 260 tons of gold in 2023. Bureau Report WION World is One.
A quick look now at some of the stories that we have lined up for you on the show tonight. A Boeing 767 cargo plane landed at Istanbul airport without its front landing gear. A probe has now been launched. Meanwhile, the FAA has opened an investigation into the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Also, a long-awaited liftoff of the Boeing Starliner has been pushed to the 17th of May. Why was the launch delayed? What's going on? A new trend is on the rise in Japan. People are marrying their best friends with no space for romance or intercourse. Tonight, we explored the perks of what's being called friendship marriage. More than 800,000 people in Europe and the US have been duped into sharing car details and other sensitive personal data. Who is behind the world's largest online scam? A vast network of fake online designer shops apparently operating from China. We get you the complete story. Let's now shift our focus to India, where opposition leader Sam Pitroda put the Congress party in a pickle for a second time in a month. This time with a racist remark. In an interview with an Indian newspaper, Pitroda said that Indians in the East resemble the Chinese, while those in the South look like Africans. You heard that right. He said, and I'm quoting now, "We have survived 75 years in a very happy environment where people could live together, leaving aside a few fights here and there. We could hold the country as diverse as India together, where people in the East look like the Chinese, people in the West look like the Arabs, people in the North look like maybe white, and people in the South look like Africans," quote unquote. What exactly was he trying to achieve with that statement? Only Sam Pitroda knows. What we know is that his racist comment created such a firestorm that even the Congress did not know how to come back from it. The Congress quickly distanced itself from Pitroda's comment. They called it unfortunate and unacceptable. In a post on the platform X, Congress leader Jairam Ramesh said, and I'm quoting, "The analogies drawn by Sam Pitroda in a podcast to illustrate India's diversity are most unfortunate and unacceptable. The Indian National Congress completely dissociates itself from these analogies." But while it left the Congress red-faced, Pitroda's statement gave fresh fodder to the Congress's rivals. Sharply reacting to the remark, BJP leader Himanta Biswa Sarma, who is himself from the Northeast, said that Pitroda needs a lesson on India. Meanwhile, former Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad called Pitroda a failure. Under fire over his racist analogies, Sam Pitroda has stepped down. He quit as the chairman of the Indian Overseas Congress. In a post on the platform X, the Congress party said that his resignation had been accepted, and it left us wondering, was it a little too late? You see, Sam Pitroda had already turned into a thorn in the flesh for the grand old party, and this is not the first time, by the way, that Pitroda's remarks have left the Congress in a fix. Just last month, the Congress found itself in damage control mode after Pitroda suggested imposing a US-style inheritance tax in India. At the time, Prime Minister Modi as well as several BJP leaders slammed Pitroda's suggestion and alleged that it was a Congress ploy to rob the middle class of India. Still, the political war of words aside, Sam Pitroda is a habitual offender. In the year 2019, during the last Lok Sabha polls in India, Pitroda casually dismissed a moment in Indian history that still scars many. Talking about the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, Pitroda stirred a major controversy by replying, quote-unquote, "so what?" to a question on the alleged involvement of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in the riots. Before that, Pitroda questioned the Balakot air strikes carried out by the Indian Air Force in Pakistan in retaliation for the Pulwama attack. The same year, Pitroda also said that the middle class should not be selfish and pay more taxes. These are just some of the examples of Sam Pitroda's controversial comments. And each time, the Congress has been left with egg on its face. Still, this time Pitroda may have crossed a red line. The Congress may have been able to save face by cutting off Pitroda, but such comments from veteran leaders are sure to leave a bad taste in the mouths. The business of putting people in ethnic, racist boxes is so 19th century that it's painful to hear it in the 21st century. And I want to end this segment by asking my viewers, I am an Indian. Can anybody tell me what I look like? Our next story is about Boeing. Yes, it is back in the news. And before I go on, let me show you this. The FedEx Airlines Boeing 767 cargo plane landed at Istanbul airport on Wednesday without its front landing gear. There were no casualties and authorities have now launched an investigation. The aircraft was flying from Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport. It informed the control tower in Istanbul that its landing gear had failed to open, and it touched down with guidance from the tower, managing to remain on the runway. The airport rescue and firefighting teams were scrambled. Thankfully, no one was injured. And this is not the only reason why Boeing has been making headlines. The FAA has opened an investigation into the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. For those unversed, FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration. It regulates civil aviation in the United States. This comes after the company reported that workers at a plant falsified inspection records on certain 787 planes. Let me say that again. Workers at a plant falsified inspection records. What does that mean? Basically, the plane maker has said some employees had committed quote-unquote misconduct by claiming some tests had been completed. At the same time, Boeing has said that its engineers have determined that misconduct did not create an immediate safety of flight issue. Let me tell you a bit more about the investigation. The FAA has said it is investigating whether Boeing completed the inspections to confirm adequate bonding and grounding where the wings join the fuselage on certain 787 Dreamliner airplanes, and whether company employees may have falsified aircraft records. Yes, you are right. This does sound serious. The agency has said that at the same time, Boeing is re-inspecting all 787 airplanes still within the production system and must also create a plan to address the in-service fleet. Now, this investigation is not the only reason why Boeing is in the news as well. A long-awaited lift-off of the Boeing Starliner has been postponed. Why is that? Because of a technical glitch. It was supposed to take astronaut Sunita Williams to space for a third time. The Boeing Starliner was scheduled to lift off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida's Cape Canaveral, but the launch was called off just 90 minutes before the liftoff. This was after a pressure regulation valve malfunctioned. Williams and NASA's Barry Wilmore were set to fly the Starliner to the International Space Station. They safely exited the spacecraft. So what next now? The Boeing Starliner capsule carrying Sunita Williams will now take off on the 17th of May. But the thing is, this postponement only builds on the pressure on Boeing, coming at a time when serious questions have been raised over the safety of Boeing aircraft. They say, marry your best friend. And the Japanese seem to have taken this advice quite seriously. They are really getting married to their best friends. It has become a trend, in fact. The trend of what's being called the friendship marriage. It's strictly platonic, by the way, and there is no room for romance or intercourse. So what is it exactly? And how do you define a friendship marriage? It is essentially a cohabitating relationship based on shared interests and values. It defies the rules of traditional romantic love. In such relationships, the partners are legally spouses. They may live together or separately. And if they decide to have children, they might decide to use artificial insemination. For those unversed, it is when a doctor directly introduces sperms in a woman's reproductive organs instead of traditional intercourse. And here comes the spice. Both individuals are free to pursue romantic relationships with other people outside the marriage, as long as there is mutual agreement. It's like finding a roommate with similar interests. Before marrying, these so-called couples spend hours or days ironing out details of their married life, such as whether to eat meals together, how to split the expenses, who does the laundry, how to allocate space if they are going to live together, and other basic decisions. Now, such discussions may seem unromantic, but they have helped about 80% of couples to live happily together, and in many cases, even have children. After all, communication is the key. And how common is it? Around 1% of Japan's population of 124 million are possible candidates for the arrangement. The figures come from Coloris, an agency that claims to be the first and only one in Japan that specializes in friendship marriages. The trend is particularly appealing to asexual individuals, homosexuals and heterosexuals who are disappointed by traditional marriage. Asexuals may be unable to feel sexual desire or fall in love, but many still crave connection and companionship. Seeking alternatives to traditional marriage, they have turned to friendship marriage to present a stable and mature image for career advancement, also to please their parents. And there are other perks as well, like tax benefits and freedom to have children. What are your views on this trend? Would you ever marry your best friend? Let us know what you think. Our next story is about hacker state China. According to an investigative report by the British daily The Guardian, a massive network of fake online designer shops seemingly operated from China reportedly deceived over 800,000 individuals in Europe and the US. And this network reportedly managed to trick online shoppers into divulging their car details and sensitive personal information. Our next report getting you the details.
Investigative reports by The Guardian, Dizet and Le Monde have shed light on what the UK's Chartered Trading Standards Institute labels as one of the largest scams of its kind. The scheme involves the creation of 76,000 fake websites, showcasing discounted products from prominent brands. Analysis conducted by reporters and IT experts unveil the sophisticated nature of this operation, marked by its industrial scale and technical proficiency. These fraudulent web shops span across multiple languages and entice unsuspecting consumers to make purchases, only to leave them empty-handed. These websites are published in multiple languages, from English to German, French, Spanish, Swedish, and Italian. The inception of these fake shops dates back to 2015, with over 1 million orders processed within the past 3 years alone. This potentially amounts to a staggering 50 million euros in attempted transactions. According to the report, it appears that the operation's mechanics resemble a franchise-like model. This involves a core group of developers orchestrating the creation and deployment of fake websites, while allowing other entities to utilize the system for their fraudulent endeavors. Victims continue to be lured in by enticing offers, only to realize they have been deceived. Cybersecurity advisors have also highlighted the value of such personal data troves. They stated that it's not only for financial exploitation, but also as potential targets for foreign intelligence agencies. The network behind the scam had employed expired domains to evade detection. It utilized a database of 2.7 million such domains to select the most suitable ones. In many cases, owners of brands were getting complaints about orders not being delivered. Much to their surprise, their old websites, not currently in active use, were exploited. Reportedly, the network's origins trace back to Fujian province, with many IP addresses linked to China. This network appeared to be a single software platform to create tens of thousands of fake online shops. Action Fraud, the UK's reporting centre for cybercrime, said it would seek to have the fake web shops taken down. Purchase fraud cases rose by 43% in the UK, and nearly $8.8 billion was lost to fraud in the US in 2022, an increase of more than 30% from the previous year. Experts have highlighted purchase fraud as a significant driver of online financial crime, urging technology companies to enhance consumer protection. The widespread impact of online scams underscores the urgent need for concerted international efforts to protect consumers against such malicious schemes. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
On that note, we're taking a very short break. Stay with us. You are watching Gravitas. Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 PM IST, 3:30 PM GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 PM IST, 1 PM GMT.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. You are watching Gravitas. While the front lines of Ukraine are slowly collapsing under the barrage of Russian advances, Ukraine is now warning of possible power shutdowns across the country after a massive wave of Russian missiles and drones targeted the country's battered energy system. Our next report detailing how perilous the situation really is.
Russian forces unleashed a brutal assault on Ukraine. Over 50 missiles and 20 drones rained down across the country, targeting critical infrastructure, power plants, communication hubs, and transportation facilities bore the brunt of the attack. The latest assault marks a grim milestone in the war, with Russian forces demonstrating their capability to inflict widespread damage on critical infrastructure. Experts say that by taking out power, Moscow aims to rob Ukrainian manufacturing of its energy supply, especially military plants, and crush public morale. Ukraine lost about 80% of its thermal power generation and about 35% of its hydropower capacity during the renewed attacks. Before Russia's invasion, Ukraine had one of Europe's largest electricity systems and was a net power exporter. Now, Ukrainian authorities are warning of large-scale blackouts without the help of its Western allies.
Our equipment is from the Soviet time, and all these spare parts and auxiliary accessories were made during that time. Without the help of European countries and our partners in general, it would be very difficult to restore the power plant. What we can, we restore by repairing. For the replacement, we would need the help of our partners.
On the front lines, the situation is equally dire. Russian forces have made significant inroads, breaking through Ukrainian defenses in key strategic locations. Russia has redoubled its offensive in Donbass over the past month, making significant advances. Moscow on Wednesday said its forces have captured 2 more frontline villages in eastern Ukraine. Kyiv has struggled to hold the front line in recent months. Now, Ukrainian commanders are openly speaking about Russian successes on the front lines.
When 500 kilograms of explosives fall in a position, regardless of how well it was done, it will be surely destroyed. The enemy are burning everything in front of them with guided aerial bombs and have been actively targeting positions in frontline cities.
Kyiv hopes that with the arrival of long-awaited US arms supplies, the situation on the battlefield would change. Ukraine has been warning for months about shortages in ammunition, blaming delays and indecision over Western supplies. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Shifting focus for now, Apple has reported a decline in the global smartphone demand, with iPhone sales falling over 10% in the first quarter. This comes despite a surge in the overall smartphone market. Our next report exploring the reasons behind this decline and Apple's plans for the future.
Tech giant Apple faces challenging market dynamics in 2024. Global smartphone shipments surged 10% in the first quarter, but Apple sales dipped for the fifth time in 6 quarters. iPhone sales, a key revenue driver, plummeted over 10% compared to last year. Overall revenue fell 4% to $90.8 billion, the largest drop for Apple in over a year. However, share buyback announcement keeps the stock price elevated. Apple blames supply chain disruptions stemming from the pandemic for the sales decline. These disruptions may have created artificially inflated sales figures last year. The story in China, Apple's biggest market, is complex. Overall sales in Greater China dropped 8%, but iPhone sales in mainland China actually rose. Analysts point to fierce competition from local rivals like Huawei for the decline in overall market share. Experts suggest a lack of significant iPhone upgrades could be contributing to the sales slump. The last major innovation, 5G connectivity, came with the iPhone 12 nearly 4 years ago. Apple hopes upcoming features, particularly AI integration in the iPhone 16, rumored for later this year, will reignite the upgrade cycle. Legal battles over App Store fees and a potential loss of revenue from a search deal with Google add further uncertainty to Apple's future. However, the company predicts a return to growth in the coming months, fueled by its services businesses and potential catalysts in the pipeline. Only time will tell if Apple can navigate these challenges and regain its sales momentum. Report, WION, World is One.
Time now for Gravitas recall. On this day in 1945, World War II ended in Europe. In April that year, the thin German defenses in Italy were broken by an Allied attack. A surrender document that had been signed on the 29th of April, when former dictator of Germany Adolf Hitler was still alive, finally brought the fighting to a conclusion on May 2nd. And on May 4, the surrender of the German forces in northwestern Europe was signed. A further document covering all the German forces was signed with a ceremony at the U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower's headquarters in France, and it was signed in the presence of the Soviet as well as the United States, British and French delegations. At midnight on the 8th of May in 1945, the war in Europe was officially over, although the war in the Pacific continued until the Japanese surrendered in September that year. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Kampir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 PM IST, 1 PM GMT.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions.